live, and here we go. So again, thank you everyone for joining the Talking Boxing show tonight. If you're here for the first time, thanks for obviously tuning in. And if you don't know the way it works, you put your comment in there and let's talk some boxing. It wasn't an overly busy weekend. I know we did have some action, but there wasn't a lot to sort of talk about. I know we had Jared Anderson. It should be a big weekend this week, or not weekend. It's on Wednesday, I think, isn't it? Is the Premier Boxing Series. So round 2 will be on. But really looking forward to Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia this weekend. So as always, plenty to talk about. What do we got there? I've got a few in the chat already, so thanks for joining in, guys. I've got Robert Tyler, who's straight off the bat. Let's get into the question straight away. Robert says, what do you think of Tyson Pedro entering the boxing from MMA? Danny Green seems to think he's something special. I did see that from Danny, Robert, and he's pretty keen on his chances, isn't he? I mean, someone like Danny Green wouldn't get behind someone like Tyson Pedro if he didn't think he could make it in boxing. I've got to admit, Robert, I haven't seen much of Tyson Pedro at all. I saw some highlights on social media the other day that were sort of being played. Now, who's he fighting? It's Chris now, how do you pronounce it? Terziewski. Now, look, it's a pretty capable opponent first up. If he can go okay in the boxing, and Danny thinks he's going to go okay in the sport, it's a pretty tough fight first up because, of course, I'm just going to call him Chris, by the way, had the win over Paul Gallen a year or two ago. Don't think he's really done a lot since. So, but look, I saw him that night. I was there at the fight in Newcastle, and he pretty much boxed Gallen's ears off for the whole fight. So if Tyson Pedro's not ready to go, then Chris Terziewski will show him up. He's a spoiler. He's a southpaw. He's got good skills. So probably not, in my opinion, the ideal opponent to throw yourself or throw a prospect like Tyson Pedro in straight away. But I don't think Danny would be doing it if he didn't think he could win. But as I said, Robert, I'm not quite sure of his skills. And look, he might have been a good MMA fighter. I've got to say, I'm yet to see an MMA fighter turn to boxing and look anything like a boxer. And I always say it, with the MMA guys, they do not give boxing enough attention, enough credit, and a lot of them pay the price. Although I will say, I didn't see the UFC yesterday. I have got a few shows. I know it's supposedly the biggest show ever, but I didn't really recognise any of the fighters, so I didn't get it. But if you look at the trend in MMA lately, it says it's all with the hands. That's where the damage is getting done. You saw the main event. I couldn't miss it. You scroll through social media, and it's everywhere. They knock out whoever it was that knocked the other guy out. I don't even know who fought, to be honest. That's how much I know about UFC. But it's all with the hands. Now, yes, it did look like a bar brawl or a street fight or whatever it might have been, but it was the hands that got the job done. And again, look, if you've been watching this or listening to this show for the last couple of years, you know that I'm big on, with the boxing side of things. They don't give it enough time and attention. And as a result, the balance is off, the footwork's off, the technique with the hands is off. So maybe the wheels are starting to turn, because for years and years and years, the MMA fighters and especially the fans gave boxing absolutely no credit whatsoever. So if he's got Danny Green, I'm not sure, Robert, let me know, is Danny actually helping train him, or has he got another trainer? I must admit, I haven't really taken much notice, mate. But let's hope that now that he's made the jump, that he will get the necessary trainers behind him and give him the best possible chance. Because so far, as I said, I've yet to see an MMA fighter make the switch to boxing and do it with any type of success. So there's Ian Davenport. I love the weekly woohoo. Hello to you, Ian. Dundee Luke, how you going there, mate? Think I'll pass on the Nikita Creati fight. Bring on Paro versus Matias. What a fight that's going to be. Look, I'm with you, Dundee. I am going to get the fight because, it's what I do. I've got this YouTube channel. There's no use getting on here talking boxing and having my opinions if I don't even get the card. And look, I will say it's been made a little bit easier by the fact that the undercard is quite solid. I like the undercard. I'll say it again, the Nikita Creati fight. I don't think No Limit have done Nikita any good at all with this fight. This thing's a nothing fight. I don't expect Creati to have the skill, nor the power, nor ring IQ, no matter what you want to call it, to last with Nikita. Now, look, if he does what he did against Michael Zarafa and, get on the back foot and move and hold and clinch and whatever else it might be, well, he might survive a few rounds, but it's going to be an awfully boring fight. And I just expect Nikita to hunt him down. Nikita's just improved so much in the last few fights, and he's learning all the time. You've got to have, in my opinion, you've got to have some type of power to at least get Nikita's respect. We saw it with Brubaker. It landed some beautiful punches. We saw Ben Horn's not really a big puncher. I'd sort of almost disregard that fight because it was so long ago. But and I think he's learned so much from that fight. But geez, you wouldn't want to be in there with just an absolute bull like Nikita Tszyu, and you can't bruise a grape with your punches. I just think Nikita will hunt him down, and unlike Michael Zarafa, this is again my opinion, unlike Michael Zarafa, who was quite content just to go the 10 rounds and just get the rounds under his belt and get the win, and wasn't too stressed that Creati didn't engage, Nikita's not wired that way. He's going to want to please the crowd. He's going to want to knock Creati out. We all know Nikita's just a little left to centre, let's say, with the way he thinks. And I love it. I think he's awesome. But I just think if he's in the right frame of mind, it's going to be a very, very tough night at the office for Creati. And look, who knows? Maybe there wasn't anyone really around to fight Nikita. I would hate to think that they've deliberately targeted Creati for Nikita Tszyu. I'm hoping that we're relatively early in the year. Maybe the fights weren't there. Maybe fighters priced themselves out of it. I don't know. But I would hope that Creati wasn't someone that the No Limit boys sat down and went, yeah, he's our guy. Because for me, far from it. And especially to charge us $60. As I said, I think the rest of the card is quite worth it. So I'll pay it, no problems. But what's the use of having a pay-per-view when the rest of the undercard is solid and the main event just doesn't excite anyone whatsoever. So let's hope we're wrong. Let's hope Creati comes out like Peter McNeely did against Mike Tyson and starts throwing bombs everywhere and we have some sort of fight. But again, that would be bad news against someone like Nikita who just loves it and thrives on that type of fight. So look, we'll see. Who we got there? Peter Nutt. How you going, Peter? CBS is talking shit about Opetaia, saying he's on another level. That's Billum Smith, I'm gathering. I didn't see it, Peter. I don't know if that is the case. I don't know how you could be someone the caliber of Billum Smith and be talking smack about someone like Jai Opetaia, who's an absolute killer. I can't wait for this fight, by the way, with Opetaia and Breeders. I think it's going to be even better than the first, I would think. Jai has improved so much. He's now got that champion mentality, if he didn't have it before, that is. And Breeders, who might have maybe underestimated Jai Opetaia last time out. Breeders was the top dog, of course. So maybe he's going to come with a little different attitude and on neutral ground as well. So I think we're going to get a better fight than fight number one, if that's possible, because that was a great fight. And if Jai gets past that, well, the world's his oyster, isn't it? I mean, the heavyweight division, Beckham's not quite sure whether the guys like Billum Smith even excite Jai. I'm sure they do. He'll probably want to go to England, or I say England, but maybe the money's too good in Saudi Arabia. Maybe they'll keep him there. Of course, he's with Matchroom. So, yeah, I don't know. But I didn't see it, Peter. But he's a brave man talking smack about Opetaia, who's got the runs on the board. And what's Billum Smith done? Not much. Who we got there? Casper Munro Lynch. How you going there, Casper? Thoughts on Boots Ennis signing with Eddie Hearn? I really like it, Casper. I think it's a really good move by Boots Ennis. He's been sitting on the shelf for quite some time, just treading water. Such a talent. He should be in these big fights at the moment, and we just don't really hear enough of him. I know all we sort of tend to hear about him is, will Terence Crawford fight him? I don't think, and I don't blame him. Why would Terence Crawford want to fight Boots Ennis? He's in the twilight of his career. Not to say it's not going to happen, but I totally understand why Terence Crawford would look at someone like Boots Ennis and say, why would I fight this guy? I'm 36. This guy's a young bull. He's got one of the belts now. He can fight. Why would I? And look, why would I risk my legacy or standing or future paydays against someone as dangerous as him when I can just wait it out for Fundora or Tim Tszyu or Canelo maybe? Who knows? But I understand that. But at the moment, I think the good thing about this is, Casper, is at least with Eddie Hearn's a mover and shaker. He's not going to let Boots Ennis sit on the shelf. Now, there's a reason why he signed him. Of course, he's going to want the Crawford fight, whether he gets it or not. But even if it's not Crawford, Eddie Hearn, he likes to get creative. He likes to get the good fights happening. So he will have something in mind for Boots Ennis. So no matter what happens, whether the Crawford fight happens or not, I guarantee we'll see Boots Ennis in some really, really good fights. It might be a Conor Benn. If the Crawford fight doesn't happen, maybe Eddie steers those two guys together. That'd be a massive fight. Well, not a massive fight, but it'd be a really, really good fight for us fans. So, as I said, the good thing about Eddie Hearn is he doesn't just sit on his hands and let his guys rot like PBC does. He likes to keep them active. He likes to keep them fighting each other. And I think it's a really, really good signing, Casper. Who's that? Shamrock 11. G'day to you, Shamrock, as well. Nikita hit list revealed. Okay, I didn't see that. Cohen, Wade Ryan, and Brock Jarvis looked at after Creati. Well, look, maybe that's a little bit to my point earlier, Shamrock. Maybe they've chosen Creati. Maybe they just want just a quick tune-up for him where he's in against a guy who can't punch. He doesn't really bring a lot to the table. They might see it as an easy kill. Or worst case, even if the fight's semi-competitive, he's not really going to get knocked around. That's probably the only thing or positive spin I can put on it. I really can. And I had to laugh with the press conference. I love, they got the big posters and got everyone up there, and you got George Rose, and what a great fight this is going to be. And I'm probably like a lot of you guys out there mid-yawn at that stage. But as I said before, the undercard looks okay. So we'll roll with it. All right. Well, out of those, Shamrock, I think Koa Mizudia, I think he would have been the one up this time if it wasn't for his injury. Really, really good fight. I think he's custom made for Nikita as far as style goes. Cohen's not a big puncher either, but he's awkward. He stands there and he can fight. He's got some good skills, good trainers, all that sort of stuff. So I think he's a serviceable fight for Nikita at this stage of his career. So I like that fight. Wade Ryan is a very interesting one. Very, very tough, very, very awkward. He's a spoiler. I'm not sure whether that... I know it's probably good to put the hit list out there, Shamrock. I'd be surprised if they fight Wade Ryan. Not to think they're scared of him or think they'll lose. I just don't see the sense in fighting someone like a Wade Ryan, who, as I said, he's a spoiler. He's just the wrong type of guy you want to fight. So I'm not sure that one goes ahead. I know it's great for Nikita to say I want him. He is probably one of the best in the division. I just don't understand why you would fight someone who's just fights like Wade. And all due respect to Wade, but I'm looking through the management or the eyes of the management of Nikita Tszyu. I don't see Wade Ryan as that guy who is really going to bring a lot to the table, except giving Nikita a very, very tough fight just by his style and his tactics and everything else. So anyway, we'll see with that one. Brock Jarvis is the interesting one, Shamrock. That is very interesting. I know they've sort of had just a little bit of banter. I saw Nikita the other day say they sparred, must have been a couple of years ago, and handled him quite easily. But I like the fight. I really like the fight. I'm really interested to see what Brock Jarvis looks like at 154. I think it'll be a good fight. Brock goes okay. You got to remember, before he got stopped by, or knocked out, I suppose you could say, by Liam Paro, he was one of the next big things of Australian boxing. I know he's had the fallout with Jeff. We'll have to see how that works with how the training and everything else goes. Does he improve? Does he go backwards? Let's see. I like the fight. I like Nikita versus Brock Jarvis. That is a fight I would 100% have no hesitation in forking over the money, because Brock is a good fighter. So, but again, let's see what he looks like at 154. I know there was even talk about him maybe going to 160. I think 154 is a nice weight for Brock. So, so Cohen, yep, tick, like the fight. Wade Ryan, big question mark beside that one. But Brock Jarvis, 100% yes. Love that fight. Oh, here we go. Old mate Big J is in the house. 6'5", 250-pound plus heavyweights. Usyk, Joshua is the exception, but he's a chump. Okay. Well, suffering the same fate. All the evidence Opetai needs to stay away from the heavyweight division. Yeah, look, it just depends, Big J. I mean, does the 250 mean they have an advantage over Jai? Obviously, they have the size. But does Jai take a leaf out of the Usyk book where he's faster, better footwork, doesn't stand in front of them? I think Jai goes very, very well at heavyweight. I think it actually suits him. Bulk up a little bit more. I think Jai could do really, really good things at heavyweight, Big J. I know the size difference would be massive, but as we've sort of seen in the past with those big cumbersome, I should say, lumbering, cumbersome heavyweights, they can get carved up a bit by the smaller type of guy. So we'll see. But I don't think Jai would have a lot. I don't think he'd have a lot of fear against any of those guys. I think out of all of them, to be honest, I think Usyk's probably the toughest fight out of all of them, just because he's got a similar size and style to Jai Pataya. But we'll see. End of the day, Big J, doesn't matter, mate. He's getting paid $10-20 million. I think he'll fight all of them on the same night if he had to. So I don't think he's going to really worry about that at all. Speaking of Big J, we've got another couple from you. You've been beaten to the punch a bit tonight. Big J is a few in front here, but we'll go through your comments. What do you got there? Do you see Fury's comments regarding cruiserweight stepping up to heavyweight and getting dominated by the bigger heavyweights? Holyfield, Mora, and Hay all got flogged when they went up against what's PTO mean? I'm not quite sure, but all good. I don't think you can put David Hay in the same category as Evander Holyfield and Michael Mora, Big J. I don't think he was as talented as those guys were, so he probably got what he deserved, I suppose. But Evander Holyfield and Michael Mora, they both won the heavyweight title, Big J. They can't have done too much wrong. Evander Holyfield, for me, is probably in the top 5 or 6 heavyweights of all time, in my humble opinion. Maybe not the top 5, but definitely the top maybe 8 or 9, I think. And Michael Mora, while he's not anywhere near the top 10 of all time, still won. He had the light heavyweight and went up to I'm not sure he won the cruiserweight, did he? He might have went from light heavyweight straight to heavyweight. Both won the heavyweight title, Big J. So I did see the comments from Tyson Fury, though, but I just think he's just a little bit insulted that people fighters from the cruiserweight division would dare come into his division. Now, I think that's where those comments come from. Another one from Big J. You got a few in the row there, mate. We'll get through them. To start, what we got there? To start, seems that the Ace boxing shows have already dropped in quality. They already need Taylor Robinson to win, or they really. I'm assuming that means they really needed Taylor Robinson to win. I'm not sure this works in the long run. Hope I'm wrong. I hope you're wrong too, Big J. And look, if I'm being completely honest, I'm the first one to put my hand up with the No Limit shows. I'll do this with this one as well, but I'm not going to say this is a terrible card, but it doesn't really get the juices flowing, does it? I must admit. Joel Taylor and who is it? Lachlan O'Shea, 8-3 versus 10-1. Look, what I'll say is that probably unlike the No Limit model, where I'm not exactly sure how many shows they have, Big J, but Ace Boxing have committed to 10 shows a year. I think a lot of their shows are going to struggle only because it's hard to put together 10 shows in 10 months. I mean, it's crazy. They're going to try and do it, but I think what's going to happen, Big J, we're going to have the good with the bad. Now, the difference in the two organisations or promotional firms is that, as I said, Ace Boxing have got that volume of shows they've just got to do now. Yes, it's their own fault they've taken on that amount, or Seven Mate have said you have to do this, so they've just got to either comply or let the deal go. I understand that, but the difference with No Limit is that I think they choose to be a little bit disorganised. They do 3 or 4 shows really quick, and then they have a big gap. I like the Ace Boxing model, but however, it does pose the problems we're getting here in this instance. Fight night number 2, and yeah, it does lack a little bit. The rest of the card there, well, let's just have a quick look as we go on, Big J. So probably blank out there. Yep. Okay, we'll go back. Where are we there? I'll go back there. Sorry, guys. Normally takes a second attempt. All right, so you can see there. So you got Joel Taylor, Lachlan O'Shea, Jess Messina, and Millicent Agbo Douglas. She's the one that beat, what's her name? Taylor Harris. That'll be a really good female fight, though. Who else we got? Dan Murray, Jed Morris, Riley Jackson, Jack Yates. So, yeah, look, okay. As I said, mate, it's not the best card, but I think they're under that pressure of the 7 Mate contract where they've got to have a show every month for the 10 months, probably from February to or March to November, whatever it might be. But yeah, the No Limit, who have a lot more resources, I've got to say, than Ace Boxing. They get good money to put the shows on. Ace Boxing don't. It sort of balances itself out. But yeah, I am with you there, mate. Show number 2 doesn't look overly exciting, but let's hope as the year that goes on, we might have one like this one, then we'll have a really good one, and it just might be a little bit up and down. The problem I have with No Limit is that they have a choice and the resources to consistently put on the absolute best shows and just haven't. That's the difference, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but anyway. But I'm with you there, mate. We've got to call it out. The same thing, that any show that's on TV is going to get scrutiny, and in this case here, it's not the most exciting card, but hey, it's free, and we'll watch it. I am doing the watch along with it too, guys. Regardless of what it's going to be like, I am going to do the watch along on Wednesday night from 7 p.m. There's only 4 fights, so if you want to tune in, jump on here, and we'll watch it together. Geez, Big J, you got a few comments there, mate. We'll get through them. That Chump McAllister still ducking me, but reckons he's going to call me out at the Cambosis Loma presser. Maybe something to look forward to. Well, I really look forward to that, mate, if that's the case. He looks in pretty good nick, Big J. I reckon he might have you covered a bit, to be honest. He's got a bit of size about him. Looks in pretty good nick when I saw him in Vegas. So maybe sometimes be careful what you wish for. All right, one more from Big J. Tyson Pedro will get KO'd by old mate. Yeah, well, as I said, Big J, I don't know enough about him. I take really no interest in the UFC guys, so I don't know. All I hope is that he's prepared. But as I said, Chris Terziewski, pretty capable guy, and he'd better be in good nick, or Chris Terziewski will beat him as well. All right, Casper. Seen today, Tim has re-entered the WBO rankings and been put at 1. Excuse me. So if Fundora is stripped or vacated, which I think is very likely, him versus Crawford would be ordered, I assume. It would be, mate. Well, just out of curiosity, I had the rankings up just before we went on air. Let's have a quick look. We'll go back to the webcam. I'll get your comment off the screen there. Oh, and I don't know why it keeps doing this, guys, why it goes black, but all good. All right, there's your comment again there, mate. We'll get that off. All right, let's have a look. What is he? 154. Let's have a look. WBO. Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, well, well, obviously it has been updated, Caspar, but I don't think it really matters whether he's 1 or 2. You're right. If that does get vacated, that Tim and Crawford would fight. Wouldn't that be ironic out of everything? Tim actually loses and then gets the fight with Crawford. It just, it's a little bit bizarre. Look, there has been talk that Fundora Zoo 2 will happen in November, so we'll keep an eye on that. But I mean, that does make the most sense. But if that does happen, the odds are that Crawford will fight. Well, will it be Josh Kelly, I suppose, for the vacant title? Who knows? I mean, there's so many things going on. I suppose we're all guessing a little bit at the moment, but it's got some merit. I mean, I think Fundora's either going to fight Zoo or Crawford. So I don't think Zoo and Crawford will actually happen, because if Fundora's going to fight Tim, let's say they'll strip him and Crawford will fight probably Kelly, which is really a nothing fight for Crawford. It's amazing that with this result with Zoo and Fundora, that all of a sudden Crawford's been frozen out. It's crazy. And if he decides to fight Fundora, if Fundora decides to fight Crawford, I'm not quite sure how that works with Tim, whether Tim then fights for the vacant WBC. Who knows? Who knows? Although there it is there. That's vacant. Now, what's going on there? The 154-pound WBC belt is vacant. Let's have a look at when it was updated. WBC updated on March 19. So it was actually before. Okay, all right. So it hasn't been updated. Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun a bit there. I had a heart attack then. All right. Yeah, but as I said there, Casper, I think if Fundora and Zoo fight again, you'll probably see the WBO strip Fundora, and Crawford will fight Kelly, I'm assuming. And if Fundora fights Crawford, you'll probably see the WBC maybe strip Fundora, and maybe Tim would fight someone for. We would probably fight Bolachuk for that, wouldn't he? So for the full belt. So anyway, we'll soon see, mate. I'll keep moving. I'll go back to my screen. Brock Jarvis. Haven't seen him in a donkey's age, but I watched him twice on DAZN, and Eddie couldn't keep him on Matchroom. Well, no, I think after the Paro lost Kyle, it was pretty much we'll call you, don't call us situation. But he came back and had a win Brock, but let me have a look actually while we're going. He did have a win, but it was a very, very shaky win, wasn't it? He was lucky to get through it, but that was also at 144. So that was at welterweight. Have a quick look. Actually, I won't. That was a year ago, guys. Over a year, 13 months ago. I'm not that stressed about him having that long off though, Kyle. He's still a young guy, and he's taken all sorts of punishment in the last few fights. He had the Paro knockout loss, of course, and his win against Penny Amogan was his name. He had some really difficult moments in that fight as well. So, and then before that was the fight in California against Rodriguez, where again, he was almost knocked out in that. So he's had 3 fights, one of them a bad knockout loss, and the other 2 where he was on the verge of being knocked out and had some really bad punishment. I don't mind him being out of the ring for 13 months now. I think it might be a good thing, Kyle, and it probably should be a little bit more of it, I think. When you get knocked out, you should be out for a long time to let yourself heal. Mutsy, how you going, mate? We'll see how the cruiserweight Usyk stacks up against Fury Big J. I'm really intrigued to see that as well, Mutsy. I think, look, the thing is with Usyk, Joshua sort of played into his hands with his strategy, I thought. Will Tyson Fury do the same thing? Well, I would think he would try and get close to Usyk and smother him and lean on him and really put that weight on him. I think Usyk will be trying to keep the range, keep going off to the left or to the right and keeping Fury sort of guessing. That's the way I think it goes. It's going to be a fascinating fight. Really, really, really fascinating fight. I just think all sorts of variants could happen. It could be a really exciting fight. It could be a really dull fight. But my pick is, as you'll see, Fury being aggressive coming at Usyk. And Usyk, as I said, just trying to give him lateral move. A little bit like Holmes and Spinks was, probably more in the second fight, I think. Tyson Fury will come out hard, maybe win it, 2, 3 of the early rounds just by that pressure. And then you might see Usyk pick it up down the track and win the later round. So it's going to be a great fight, Mutsy. I can't believe I don't want to be a doomsday, but what have we got, a month to go? Fingers crossed, touch wood, cross your toes, all that sort of stuff that we actually get the fight. It's looking good at the moment, but let's hope I'm not here next week saying, geez, what a shame that was. Another one for Kyle. WB. Okay, so it's a WBO just mandated. Tim, yep. Apparently the Saudis want Tszyu versus Crawford. That's sort of, I get that, Kyle, but I think the sanctioning bodies, in this case the WBO, still have the say. As much money as they're throwing at boxing over there, I don't think the WBO are going to go, oh, you want Tszyu versus Crawford? Okay, well, we'll just strip Fundora just to keep the Saudis happy. I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah, look, I don't know. We'll see in that case, Kyle. I don't care who Tim fights. I'm just very conscious of him not being frozen out or locked out or pushed aside, whatever you want to call it. That's just more what I'm conscious of, because it has the potential to do it. Let's hope that, and I think the fact that Fundora took as much punishment as he did in the fight and has been pulled out until sort of November at this stage, and Tim's obviously in the same boat. I think that has really helped Tim out in that Fundora's just not going to be ready to fight a Crawford or a Spence in the meantime. And it just makes sense they fight each other. Because Crawford and Spence, you would think, aren't going to want to wait until November to get a shot at Fundora. Who knows? Maybe they might. Both have had lengthy stints on the sideline, so maybe that's the case. But geez, at Crawford's age, that's a long time out of the ring. If that's November, that would be 16 months out of the ring. Same for Crawford, obviously. So some fascinating months coming up there, Kyle. Big J, Fury KOs him, too big and heavy. Body shot Usyk into next year. I don't share the same thoughts, Big J. Yeah, look, I can see Fury winning. I'm not sure whether he stops Usyk. Fury's not a big puncher, especially to the body. Heavyweights aren't necessarily big body punchers. Fury's definitely, especially not a big puncher. Not that Dubois is a big puncher, but he's a bigger puncher than what Fury is. Don't know. I just think Fury will just put the pressure on him, as I said before, he'll try and lean on him. He'll try and put the weight on him. He'll try and smother him. Is he going to be fast enough, though, on his feet to get hold of Usyk? And if he's trying to get close to him, Usyk's going to have those hands going. Usyk probably throws 2 or 3 punches to one for Fury. I don't know. As I said, it's a fascinating fight, Big J. But I'd be surprised. I'd be staggered, to be honest, if Tyson Fury stops Usyk. Yes, he could smother him over 12 rounds and tire him out, all that sort of stuff. But as far as stopping him, yeah, I'd be surprised. But let's wait and see. I don't care what the result is, Big J, as long as the 2 guys are in the ring and they start punching on when the bell rings. That's all I worry about. Mutsy, if the ref lets him lay on him, yes. If Usyk is allowed to box, he'll outpawn him easily. Well, that would be my thoughts as well, Mutsy. I think you've summed it up there. I'm not sure. There's lots of fun and games that get played in the lead up to these fights, and I think what will happen is that Team Usyk will make a big case or big point of getting the officials to highlight that Fury is, he's has the habit of doing exactly that. They'll be pointing out, I'll probably give them video clips that he used some illegal tactics in their mind, whatever it might be. But what they'll do is try everything in their power to get it in the officials' heads, especially the referee, of course, that Fury does some dirty stuff, and they'll be looking out for things like holding and leaning, wrestling, pinning him on the ropes, all that sort of stuff, just to get in the referee's mind. And then you'll probably have Fury's team doing exactly the same thing, saying, let's keep a look on the cup situation. It's not too high. Some of maybe Usyk's tactics. It's just there's a lot of things that play out before they even get in the ring. A lot of tactics that these teams use. So I think it's going to be just as entertaining outside the ring. I'm sure there'll be issues with gloves. There'll be issues with the ring size. There'll be issues with all sorts of stuff because that's the way Tyson Fury rolls. But it's worked for him so far. But I think it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be really entertaining. And I can't wait. Can't wait for the fight. Yes, Ian, don't be shy. Hit that like button. We've got almost 40 people watching at the moment. So hit the like button. I have actually noticed we're pushing 1,000 subscribers there, guys. I think we're at 970 something or whatever. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do it. It really helps and with the algorithms, all that sort of stuff. So I really appreciate it. Again, if you're listening to this after the fact on Spotify, I really appreciate it too. If you just hit the subscribe button on YouTube and help us get to 1,000, and it means absolutely nothing, but it just sort of pumps my ego up a little bit anyway. Apparently you can get monetized and all that sort of stuff. Not that it's ever been about money, but apparently when you get to 1,000, the things change for you. But anyway, we'll see. Big J says, no chance. Fury's IQ is too good. Yeah, well, again, we'll see. Mutsy says, I'll bet a long neck Usyk gives him all sorts of trouble. I'm with you there, Mutsy. As I said, I think Usyk... my early prediction is Usyk wins his fight on points. I just think he's too slick. He's too smart. Yes, he's vulnerable if he stands and gets caught. I understand that. I just don't think Tyson Fury's the type of guy to nail him. I really don't. So I don't really care who wins, by the way, guys. I just want the fight to happen and let us have an undisputed champion. So I couldn't care less whether it's Fury or Usyk. But my early money would be on Usyk. Kyle, changing the subject. What's happening with Ben Mahoney? Marnie. I think we've been over this the last few weeks, guys. I don't know. I've actually tried to look into this. I know he's had some issues outside the ring, but he's not giving much away. And the people in the know that I know aren't 100% sure. I've heard a few stories, but I'm not going to say them on here because it's just hearsay. None of it's fact. So I don't know, Cole, to be honest. I just hope we get him back in the ring soon because wouldn't he be a great opponent for Nikita Tszyu? And not just Nikita. Maybe he goes up and fights a Hardman. Even Michael Zarafa on the rebound. He's got the rematch with Koen Mazudia. There might be Joel Camilleri in there. I mean, some really good matchups at 154 to 160. So let's hope he gets whatever it is that he's dealing with outside the ring, gets it sorted, and we get Benny Mahoney or Marnie, however you pronounce it, in the ring. He's too good a fighter to be on the sidelines. Batman. Is that how behind I am? Nikita definitely stopping him easily. Sorry, guys. I'm back to the Nikita from about half an hour ago. Sorry. Yeah, I agree, Batman. It will be, in my opinion, a very, very one-sided fight. Let's roll through them, eh? Jai would absolutely destroy CBS. 100% Batman. I agree. There's Asbot. Hi, y'all. G'day to you too, mate. Welcome to the show. Caspar Munro Lynch says thoughts on Boots. I think we've gone through that one. Yep. Signing with Eddie Hearn. I love it, Caspar. Robert says, I'm not sure how hands-on he is. I just know he's in his stable. Hang on. What was that in regards to, Robert? I've got a short memory from your earlier comment. What was it? Tyson Pedro. Okay. About Tyson Pedro. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Okay. We'll move on. Batman says, just a stay busy fight for Nikita, expecting another exciting finish from him as I move him along. Yeah. And again, I have got an issue with it, I will say. I have had many issues with it, but I haven't got an issue with the caliber of creative. I just don't think he's earned it, and two, offers anything to the promotion, apart from maybe some Italian viewers. I don't know. I know they have marketed him as a former Italian national champion. Went 10 rounds with Michael Zarafa, just like clockwork it was, but it's not going to help him when he gets in the ring. Boxing fans aren't stupid. Well, are they? Some of them are. But anyway, aren't we all? But boxing fans know what's up. They know what's up. They know that it's a nothing main event. But as I said, if we're looking at the entire card, I don't really have that big a problem with it. But it just doesn't make sense when you've got a stacked undercard and the main event doesn't measure up. But anyway, hopefully it's just get this one out the road, keep busy. Hasn't fought for a little while, Nikita. Get this one out the road, and then we can get that supposed hit list that we were talking about earlier. Get that into action. Who's out there? Frank Maselli. How you going, mate? I'm not sure we've seen you on here for a little bit. Good to be back. Is there a chance to get Paulo Acuso back on No Limit or a major promotional company? It's a shame the best prospect in Australia has no TV coverage. 100% agree, Frank. I've been vocal about this as well. I don't know the whole circumstances with the No Limit breakup. All I know is that he was one of their main signings. He had an event that he headlined, and then a month or so later, he severs ties with No Limit. I don't understand it. And yes, I know I've been critical of No Limit, but why would you leave them if you are the headliner and you have the backing and resources and connections and whatever it might be that No Limit have? Why would you leave that to go to a promoter that's, I know they probably talk it up a little bit, but they're not No Limit, and you go to a streaming service that's, I doubt, will be around a long time, that will get behind boxing? Because the same thing with, a little bit like with the Ace Boxing thing with the Seven Mate, they're going to have to provide content. They have to spend a lot of money on production. How long can that be feasible for? I'm not sure. But all that aside, the fact that they just haven't got the connections and everything that No Limit have to take him where he needs to get to. I mean, No Limit probably on a daily basis are talking the PBCs and Top Ranks and all these, or Matchrooms, all these big promoters, because they've got the biggest stable of fighters. They've got the TV here, and of course they've got Tim and Nikita and Liam and Sam Goodman and all these fighters coming up. And you've got sort of Paulo Acuso just almost rotting on the vine a little bit over there. I hope I'm wrong. Look, Paulo Acuso and his team have done this for whatever reason they think is right. And it must have been a reason if they've left the biggest promoters in Australia. But I watched the last show. There would have been lucky to be 200 or 300 people in the audience. And it was just a so-so opponent. I know he had some experience, but I got no doubt that if he was still with No Limit, all of a sudden these fight nights that I'm always so critical about, you've got headliners to headline those shows. You've got really, really good headliners. Throw in a few of the Hardmans and these type of guys to headline the other cards, and they've got some good resources. So I don't know, but I hope for his sake that there was a really, really good reason why he left, and where he is looking after him. He's going to get to where he needs to, because he could be another Jai Pitara, I got no doubt. Will No Limit, if he decides to go back to them, take him on. There could have been a little bit of bad blood there. They might say, nope, you had your chance, you left. Who knows? But either way, I would love to see him back with No Limit, Frank, I will say. And if it's not with No Limit, then maybe it's with Ace Boxing or Tasman Fighters. I think would be a really good fit for him as well. But we'll see. Batman, agreed. Boots to Matchroom was great move for both. Yes. Gives Eddie a little bit of longevity, a bit of more addition to his stable, of course, and it gives Boots Ennis someone who's out there working for him, trying to make the big fights. And, you know, Eddie, he'll do anything he possibly can to get Boots Ennis the biggest fights that he can. And if you can't get Crawford, as I said earlier, I think you might see Conor Benn and him sort of geared up to fight each other maybe at some stage, which would be a ripper fight as well. Asbot. What's that? Any truth, Tim fighting Crawford in Saudi? All rumours at this stage, Asbot. As I said before, November looks like the timing for the rematch. But, yeah, I don't know. And look, the thing is, when these little rumours get out, of course, everyone wants to be first with it. It's a bit like football or whatever it might be. Everyone wants to be first. Everyone wants to get it out. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Just get it out there and be first. And boxing's no different to all the other sports sites out there. Everyone wants to get the scoop. Everyone wants to be first with it. And as I said, it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. And I've just got a feeling in this instance, it might be someone just speculating that that could be the case. And of course, everyone runs with it. And then all of a sudden, Tim is fighting Crawford. I'll wait until I hear it from the words of, or from the mouth of Glenn Jennings or No Limit, or more so PBC. So we'll stay tuned to that one, Asbot. I'd love it if it is in Saudi, to be honest, because it means Tim's probably going to get double the amount of money that he would get in Vegas. So, and Crawford as well. So these fighters deserve to get paid. So good luck to them if it is in Saudi and they earn $10 million each. It'd be fantastic. Kyle, all right, looking at the light heavyweight rankings, Wallace versus Akuso makes more sense than ever. That's a title eliminator. I don't think it'll happen though, Kyle. And yes, it does make a lot of sense for us fans. It makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it makes zero sense to all those involved in Wallace and Akuso, their teams. So they're both on the path to world title shots. Why fight each other? It doesn't make sense. Absolutely doesn't make sense. As I said, us as fans, that fight makes 100% sense. But you would, as I said, they've got both of those guys on the cusp of, well, not on the cusp, but on the road, well and truly, to world title shots. I think Wallace is a lot lot farther down the road than Paulo Akuso is. But yeah, they fight each other. Well, the winner, it's great. Doesn't really improve their world ranking, really, because neither one of them are super high on the rankings. I know where is actually. Let's have a quick look at Conor Wallace. I'll bring you guys in. We can have a quick look before we move on. Yep, I'll just have to go back, of course, because it doesn't like. All right. So let's go to the super. Sorry, where are they? Light heavyweight. Sorry. I'll get rid of your comment there, Kyle. All right. Where are we? Light heavyweight. Oh, there it is there. All right. So again, these aren't 100% up to date. There's Conor Wallace at number 10 with the WBC. He is number 8 with the WBA. He is number 9 with the IBF and number 9 with the WBO. Now, Paulo Akuso, I would be staggered if he's even ranked by any of them. So why would Team Wallace even contemplate fighting Paulo Akuso? It makes zero sense. Very, very high-risk opponent. Very capable opponent who will no doubt make big inroads himself in the light heavyweight division. Why risk your ratings and a possible world title shot in one of those divisions or one of those organisations against a guy that's going to be really, really tough to beat? So, Kyle, it's not going to happen, mate. Not for a while. Who knows? I think the likely scenario, if they are going to fight down the track, is that one of those guys wins the world title. Let's say, hypothetically, Conor Wallace fights for the IBF light heavyweight title. Pretty tough division, I will say. Look at the guys in there. Beterbiev and Bivol. Of course, we're going to have an undisputed champion later this year. Let's just say Conor Wallace, I'm not going to say beats those guys. So let's just say whoever wins the undisputed belt gives one of them up let's say it's the IBF belt for whatever reason, and Conor Wallace fights for and wins that belt, and Paulo Acuso has got some wins under his belt. It's ranked number 3 by the IBF. Some good money involved to get the fight on here in Australia, and then it happens. That's the only way I see those happening. Or alternatively, Paulo Acuso gets the belt and he fights Conor Wallace here. But yeah, lots of water to go under the bridge there, Cole, but I don't think that fight's going to happen. Bill Hack, how you going there? Bill, the pride of Tasmania. If I'll get Nikita fight because I love Aussie Warriors, I will always follow Aussie fighters over the world. Greats, Aussie. Taz Warriors, I'm even more hooked. Yeah, we love the Tassie Warriors down there. Bill, there's been a few of them, hasn't there? Highlighted, of course, by Daniel Gill and Justin Crawford in the amateurs. So, been some good fighters from Tasmania. So, no, great to have you on the show, Bill. And I did see was there a, I haven't actually spoken to Tassie Brown about this, but was there a show on the weekend in Tasmania? I thought, because I know Tassie's done obviously one already down there. Obviously it wasn't him, because normally I speak to him and hear all about it. But yeah, let us know more about that, Bill. But I did see somewhere there was a show, might have been in Launceston on the weekend. So I thought that was surprising, considering that no one's really done anything down there apart from Tassie. I'll have to give him a call and see what's up. All right, Kyle. If there are 2 promotional companies we want to fail, it's Boxer and PBC. They refuse to do business with anybody. Well, Boxer, I think, is pretty irrelevant, Kyle. I don't think they'll be around too much longer, mate. I wouldn't worry about them too much. And PBC is an interesting one. I did see that Oscar De La Hoya made a really good point the other day that every not every promotional company, every broadcaster that PBC's been involved with have got out of boxing. So they must be pretty tough to deal with. I wouldn't be, shuddered if PBC left the boxing world, Kyle, because I think Top Rank are the best in the business, if you ask me. They've been around for so long. They put on great shows, regular good shows, always good content, always bring their fighters up the right way, and just put on good promotions, and just so professional, good system, good structure. I like them. And then it was Top Rank, Matchroom, and Golden Boy, and that was it. I would love it, because I've got a feeling all 3 companies would be able to sit down and get something going. PBC is the odd one out. If you've got 4 legs on a table, it's the PBC leg that's always a bit shaky. The other 3, I think, could work quite nicely together. But if PBC were out of the equation, I think we might see some stability in world boxing. And I know this year's been great for fights, by the way, and got some great fights coming up. But if those 3 companies were the ones running world boxing, I think we will get some great matchups. And not having PBC as the spanner in the works, I think that would be a good thing, Kyle. So I agree with you on that. Hit the lick button, guys. I think he means the like button, Kyle, but I appreciate it, mate. And Marcy says, I haven't licked the button since I was a teenager. Oh, I like that. Good stuff. All good, Kyle. Appreciate you putting it up there, mate. It's all good. There's Andy. How you going, Andy? Yep. Hello to you too. Lyndon in the chat. Yep. And yes, he seconds it. Please, I'll take the time out to subscribe, share, and smash that like button. Get it on there, guys. All right, Scott Lindsay. How you going, Scott? Will we have to sign up to DAZN for Haney versus Garcia? Or will it become available on main event? Haven't seen too much about it. Now, I actually looked at this the other day, Scott. I bought it on DAZN. Now, let me just have a quick look while we're talking there, because I don't think it's going to be on main event. Let me have a quick look. I did look over the weekend or Friday, whatever it was, and it wasn't there. Quick look. No. All they had yesterday's UFC. They've got the wrestling. They have, and then it's Nikita and Creative. $59.95, by the way. Then we're into the bare knuckles. I can't watch it. Sorry, guys. I cannot watch bare knuckle boxing. It's just too brutal for me. And then the UFC 301. So, yep, no, it's not on there. Scott, I think it was, yep. But it is on DAZN. So, look, it doesn't cost anything. Well, it does cost something to sign up, Scott, but where is it? It's not sort of coming up. Yep. Okay, yeah. I think it wasn't overly expensive, Scott. You will have to... Nah, it's stupid things playing up. I've got my blocker on, the VPN blocker. Doesn't like it. But yeah, to answer your question, Scott, you will have to sign up to DAZN. If you haven't been with them before, you might be able to get a free trial, but then you'll still have to pay for the pay-per-view. And from memory, it might have been, was it $40? I think it was here in Australia, which is, I don't think is too bad. I'll happily pay $40 for Haney Garcia. I think it's great. I'm not quite sure who's on the undercard though. Let's have a quick look. I don't care. I'm only watching for the main event. Let's have a look. USA, where are we? Sorry, I've got my light in the road. USA. I'll bring you guys in. Let's have a look at it. Stupid thing. All right, let's go back. All right, here we go. What is it? The 20th. Let's keep going down there. A few shows on. There it is there. Oh, that's great. They put up one fight. Of course they do. Who's promoting that? Is that Eddie? I think it is, isn't it? Is that who's promoting it? Hang on, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the event. No, it's not even on there. Oh, there it is. Event. Let's have a look. All right. Oh, it's Golden Boy. Okay, and Matchroom. Of course it is. So Ryan's with Golden Boy, Devon's with Matchroom. So yeah, that's it. So I'm not quite sure, but yeah, sorry guys. I don't know what's happened there. But so yeah, get on there. Scott, as I said, sign up for free. Pay the $40, and then away you go. All right, get through there. Who's that? Nice photo there. OJ has entered the chat. I'm very good, thank you, OJ. Any word on Bud's next fight? No, it's all up in the air at the moment. OJ, as we said before, there's Tim, there's Fundora. There's maybe Josh Kelly. I don't know, OJ, but I'm a bit worried that there's no fights for him at all. Now, we all know he's a free agent. Has it blown up in his face? I mean, he's got no one working for him. So I think he's just expected after the Spence fight that it was all just going to fall in his lap. But especially with what's happened with Tim and Fundora, because if that hadn't have happened in the fight and Tim got through as all expected, we would have had probably a July or August Zoo Crawford fight. Now, all of a sudden, Zoo Fundora committed to fighting later in the year. And now all of a sudden, there's just nothing there for Bud. Canelo doesn't want to fight him for his own reasons. Charlo's out of the equation. The Spence thing looks like it's not going to happen. Doesn't want the boot tennis fight. So, yeah, it's a really interesting one for Bud, OJ. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Another one from OJ with Benavidez and Morrell fighting at 175. What does that mean for Canelo's next fight? Belunga or Mbili? Well, I think Canelo would be breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, OJ. I think he's done it well. He's waited or played the waiting game with Benavidez, and it's worked by the looks of things because Benavidez has gone to 175. Morrell said, okay, not so much Morrell, I think, enters the equation of Canelo at this stage, but if he's gone to 175 as well, very, very tough to come back down, especially for Benavidez, who hydrates up so much. So I wouldn't be surprised if that fight doesn't happen now. I would think Belunga is the next fight for Canelo. OJ? What do we got there? Okay, I'm getting a message. This is about DAZN. This is from Ross. Thanks, Ross. Okay. What is it worth there? Hang on. Does it say there? Stacked undercard. Confirmed. All right. Okay. What do we got? I'm not seeing the... oh, yeah, here we go. Chief support. Undefeated. Arnold Barboza. Okay. He'll fight Sean McComb. Okay. That's not a bad fight. Good fight. Now, that's for the WBO Intercontinental title. What else we got there? Bektemir, okay, another Russian of Uzbekistan. He'll fight Pierre Decombe, okay, 22-0. All right, so not a bad undercard. I'm not familiar with all those. I won't go through the whole card, but thanks, Ross, for sending that through, mate, because my app just doesn't work with the VPN blocker. Back to that, OJ. I think Belunga will be the next opponent for Canelo in September, mate. I've just got a feeling now Benavidez has made the move and said, screw this, I'm not waiting around, I'm going to go to 175. Ideally, he would go to 175 and then come back. But when you think about it, I understand there's massive money for Canelo, but, geez, Benavidez and the Better Beef and Bivol winner, all the Bs in there, how good a fight would that be? So do we then start shifting our thoughts towards maybe Benavidez versus the winner rather than the Canelo situation? Because I think Canelo is just digging his heels in a little bit at the moment. I know everyone, and I don't like it, by the way, but I think he's acting like a little bit of a spoiled child at the moment. I'm a massive Canelo fan who's agreed with every single move he's made so far in his career. I just don't like this one. It's almost he's doing it out of spite to say, no, I'm Canelo Alvarez. I'm the number one fighter in the sport, or the biggest personality, or the face of boxing, whatever you want to say. And he's saying, I'm not going to be told I have to fight anybody. I'm not going to have it demanded that I fight anybody. I'll fight Benavidez if and when I want to. And it's almost like now the more pressure that's come on Canelo, the more he's digging his heels in now. As I said, I don't like it. I think that Canelo, maybe he doesn't care what we think anyway, but I would think or hope that he would be out there saying, hey, he must read a lot what goes on and hears a lot what goes on and sees, obviously. But he would say, the fans really want this fight. This might be my parting gift to the fans. A legacy fight. I know he's had a lot over the years, but this could be his final legacy fight. And then I don't think anyone would be too stressed with what he does after that. I know I wouldn't. A lot of fans out there, even if he beats Benavidez, they'll still find a way to lay the boots into Canelo, which I hate. It was the same with Mayweather. These are great fighters, and we're going to miss them when they're gone. But I would still love him to fight Benavidez, and after that, I don't care who he fights. If he wants to have a year and a half or 2 years of fighting Morrell and Belunga and Mbili or whoever, I don't really care. I really don't. But the Benavidez fight would be that final legacy fight for him. So let's hope he just wants people just to hang in there for a bit longer, and maybe he says after this fight, he has got a surprise coming, remember, that he says, no, Benavidez and I are going to fight in September. Who knows? But as I said, I just think with Benavidez now going to 175, it's a hell of a long way back to come back to 168. Big J. Holyfield was good until he met Lewis. Same with Mora until George KO'd him. Fury points was the cruiserweights do well at Fury points was the cruiserweights do well at heavyweight until they meet a 6'5", 250 plus fighter like Foreman, Lewis, Klitschko, or Fury. Yeah, look, I think I understand what you're saying there, Big J. Holyfield was great. He did. I know it was a little bit disputed, but he did fight Lewis to a draw when Lewis was knocking out and beating everybody at that stage. Holyfield still went 12 hard rounds with him. Yeah, no, I admit he was probably a little bit lucky to get a draw, and he got obviously beaten in the rematch. But he still went toe-to-toe with an absolute monster, or monster. I always get in trouble because I say monster. But a monster like Lewis, and went toe-to-toe. He went toe-to-toe with Larry Holmes. He went with George Foreman, with these massive big guys. And Riddick Bowe was another one. Went toe-to-toe with these guys and beat 99% of them. I got full respect for Holyfield, mate. And Mora, probably nowhere near Holyfield's league, even though we did have the win over Holyfield, of course. But, I don't know. I just think Usyk, to me, I don't see him in the same league as a Holyfield or a Spinks. But I just think I don't see Tyson Fury in the league of a Lewis or a Holmes or a Bowe or any of those guys either. So I think it sort of evens itself out. I think Usyk still gives Fury big troubles, Big J. OJ, do you think Big Baby Anderson is a hype job? Last two performances versus Charles Martin and this past Saturday have been lackluster. It was a pretty dull fight, wasn't it, OJ? Wasn't a great performance by the Big Baby. Having said that, what was his name? Leary, what was his name? He's that good, I can't remember his name. Didn't really engage a lot. It was just a dull fight. I think Anderson's the type of fighter who will probably like a Dubois or one of those types of guys, or a Zhang, or those types of guys who just have to get the right opponent in front of him. I think Anderson against any of those guys I just mentioned would be okay, but he's got to take the step now, OJ. None of these sort of fighting sort of C level, D level fighters. I think the time's right for him now to jump in with whether it be a Dubois or a Parker, one of those types of guys. I don't think Parker will fight him because he's obviously got some big fights. Well, hopefully lined up after Fury, Usyk, and Joshua get done with their little triangle. But Anderson's got to throw himself in there now and just test himself. And I think that's when obviously we'll see what he's made of. I think he's better than what he showed on the weekend. I think when he fights an elite heavyweight, I think you'll see him rise to the occasion. Whether he's good enough is another point. But until he fights one of those guys, I just don't think we know. He might be one of those guys who fights to the level of his opponent. So we'll see. Where does Liam Wilson go from here? Yeah, we did talk about that last week, didn't we? Thank you to the person that just gave me a thumbs down. Obviously, didn't appreciate my comments on someone. So good on you, buddy. Hope you sleep well tonight and you feel good about yourself. I don't know, Kyle. I think we discussed that. I think he'll have a bit of a break. Glenn Jennings has said there's some or a couple of good fights for him here in Australia. I'm not 100% sure who they are, but Glenn was, when he said it, did it with a bit of a wry little smile. So I'm sure they've got that mapped out. And I think he'll get another crack. I think he's two. I know he had the loss to the Filipino, as at Noi Noi or whatever his name was. But the only other losses were to Navarrete and Valdez. I think his style's entertaining enough that he'll get another crack at the top level. He just needs to work on some stuff. We discussed this last week on the show that he's got to address his stubbornness, the way he sticks to the game plan, all that sort of stuff. And thank you for taking off the dislike, whoever that was. Thank you. Take back what I said now. Yeah, I think he's got to work on some stuff, Kyle, and then you'll see him step it up. I think he'll work on those deficiencies that he's had, address a lot of the issues that he's had in his 2 or 3 losses so far. He'll get a couple of fights here in Australia, and then I think they'll throw him back in and then see where he's at. And that's all you can do, mate. If he's not good enough to get there then he has to decide whether this is what he wants to do and whether he calls it a day or not. I think he's still got one more crack in it, though, Kyle. All right. And he's got some news. Here we go. Bud's next fight rumoured to be possibly fighting Madrimov, but pressuring WBO Mando shot. Also, Suleiman said on TBV, the Boxing Voice, that Bud's attorney contacted the WBC and will let know the plans. Okay, well, never a dull moment. Andy, thanks for that. I'd be surprised. Well, no, I was just going to say I wouldn't be surprised now if it was Madrimov. Bohachuk's an interesting one, isn't he? Whether Bud might want to fight for the WBC. Madrimov makes sense. If I was Bud, I'd probably rather fight Madrimov than Bohachuk because he's a beast. If he can't get Zoo Fundora or Charlo or Canelo, one of those types of guys. So what's the other point there? Suleiman said on TV or the Boxing Voice that Bud's attorney contacted WBC. Okay, well, if that's the case, it would be Bohachuk, wouldn't it? So keep us in the loop there, Andy. Appreciate it, mate. OJ says Holyfield outclassed Foreman and beat Bo 2 big heavyweights. Holyfield only 4 times heavyweight champ. Well, I'm a massive fan of Holyfield, OJ. You don't need to convince me, mate. As I said before, I think he's definitely in the top, 7, 8 or 9 heavyweights of all time. He was just a sensational fighter. And the fact that he went up from light heavyweight to cruiserweight to heavyweight and fought all those guys, those absolute monsters. You've listed Foreman and Bo there, but also Lewis and Holmes as well, just to name a couple. So, yeah, never scared to fight anyone was Evander Holyfield. Yeah, I did address that earlier, Batman. It's all just rumours at this stage, mate. That's Crawford and Zoo in Saudi. Would Bud versus Zoo be for WBO belt? I doubt it, OJ. I think that, it just depends. If it's fun, I think, well, this is the thing. No, it won't be Bud versus Zoo because Zoo wants to fight Fundora first and foremost. And Fundora has done nothing wrong so far. Remember, he's got the WBC and WBO belt. Different things will have to happen if he's going to be stripped of the WBO belt. Now, the only way he gets stripped of the WBO belt, I suppose if he decides to not fight Bud. But the only reason Fundora is not fighting Bud is to fight Zoo. So Bud Zoo doesn't happen. Not yet anyway. So it won't be for the WBO belt because it'll be either Fundora will either fight Bud or Zoo next. So, and it will be, that fight will be for the WBO belt. The only thing I would see is that if Fundora loses to Bud or Zoo and then they fight each other, then it will be for the WBO belt. I hope that all makes sense. But we're just talking, going around in circles here, guys. A lot of what ifs out there. So yeah, we'll just wait and see what transpires there, mate. Got a lot a lot of water to go under the bridge. Big J, that chump McAllister couldn't knock the fluff off a cappuccino. Not worried about him in the slightest. I'll tell him that, mate. All right, Kyle. Getty Hearn will be in talks with the Australian government this week on a potential matchroom card late June or July. Yeah, geez, it's a bit of a squeeze in there at the moment, Kyle. You've got No Limit. Who's the ones? Icons are with Stan. You've got Tasman with DAZN and Ace with 7 Mate. Or 7 Plus, sorry. Who's going to... well, Eddie Hearn, I think, will work in with Tasman, won't he? So that will be on DAZN. So, yeah, well, let's see. Kyle, geez, the Australian government, are they going to have any money left? I suppose Perth will be out of money because they're doing Cambosis. You got, who is it? Well, maybe Melbourne have missed out on a few of the events lately. Maybe they might come to the party. Who knows? But let's hope that's the case there, Kyle. And he says if Fundora drops the WBO to defend the WBC versus Spence, Bud versus Tim, very possible. We'll see IBF champ Murder Zadiov, another solid option out there. Okay, well, as I said, Andy, I don't see any reason why Fundora would not fight Bud or Tim and fight Spence instead, unless, of course, the PBC powers that be say, forget about Bud and Tim, you're going to fight Spence, and that's just the way it's going to be. That's the only way it happens. And then I'll probably go against what I just said earlier with Bud and Tim could be possible. I just don't see any other way that Fundora, if he doesn't fight Tim, it'll be Bud. And if it's not Bud, it'll be Tim. I don't see any way that he foregoes Bud and Tim to fight Spence. But stranger things have happened. Let's just wait and see. Can't see Crawford fighting Josh Kelly. No, long shot there, Batman. I mean, that would be terrible. His resume is always getting ripped apart. This would be a terrible look. And just time-consuming, Batman. He only has one fight a year. Why would he fight a no-name in Josh Kelly? It just doesn't make sense. But if Tim and Fundora is locked in for the end of the year, do we then maybe get, just sort of thinking out loud, maybe the WBC gets dropped, and maybe we might then see Spence Crawford 2 for the WBC belt. I mean, again, we're going around in circles. I won't waste too much more time talking about it because we're all just guessing at the moment. So many options for all those guys at 154 in terms of who's next. Well, that's the beauty of it, Batman. So many different options out there for all the guys. If one doesn't fight one, well, he can fight another one, who then can fight another one. Do we get the Boachuk and Madrimov unification fight while the others sort the business out? I mean, there's so many things that could happen. But either way, 154, red-hot division at the moment. Big J, Riddick Bowe was a chump and ducked Lewis worse than McAllister is ducking me. I agree that he ducked Lewis, but he was a pretty good fighter, Big J. He was in some great fights, was Riddick Bowe. But wasn't it funny, though, that Holyfield seemed to be his kryptonite? I know he did beat Holyfield, and also Gallotta was his kryptonite. If it wasn't for the disqualification in those fights, he would have lost both of those. So, but no, he's a class fighter. Big J was Riddick Bowe. I think Jared Anderson is extremely overrated. Has fought nobody at all, and he's 7 in the ring rankings. Well, as I said earlier, Casper, we'll see, mate. We will see. There is DJ 1551. I'm just going to call you DJ there, mate. 154 could be a guessing game for the next 6 months. Tim still owes PBC one more fight, but won't wait until December for Fundora. Have contracts been signed for the IBF? Nothing, as far as I know, has been signed at all yet, DJ. I think at the moment everyone's just taking a breath. You got Tim's over here. Well, I did see he actually ran a half marathon today. He's the beast, isn't he? He's just on holidays and decides to run 21 kilometres. It's got me, but anyway. He did say he did struggle a little bit too, though, which I've never seen sort of Tim puffing and panting that much, actually, to be honest. But yeah, I think everyone's taking a deep breath, DJ. You've got Tim on holiday. Fundora's healing up. Terence Crawford, his management would be putting the feelers out with the sanctioning bodies, see what's happening out there. Spence would probably be doing the same. You got Madrimov, Boachuk, and whoever else is around there, maybe Ortiz, these types of guys, all just pandering for the next shot at what might happen after all the done with each other. But yeah, what's your comment there? Won't wait until December. Well, I think he will wait, DJ. This is Tim waiting for Fundora. I've sort of heard that it's going to be November for that rematch. So yeah, I'm not sure what that is there, mate, but I think Tim will want to wait for Fundora. That's the fight he wants 100%. Be interesting to see whether Tim actually had a choice of fighting Fundora or Crawford, which one he would actually take. Does he go for the bigger fight? I suppose, well, it is the bigger fight with Crawford, or does he have the revenge fight against Fundora to get those belts back? Be interesting. Let's hope he has that issue, that problem going forward. It'd be a nice problem to have. Was that OJ says, "Oh mate, Big J, he did, but Prime Bo was a bad dude. He was." Anderson versus a Jugba would be nice. Frank Sanchez proved he got the goods, beating Effie convincingly, in my opinion. That would be not a bad fight there, Andy. Well, it does make sense, doesn't it? But as I said before, Anderson's got to take one of these type of fights so we can see what he's got. You can't really make a judgment on him at the moment because he hasn't really fought anybody. And until he does, we won't know. What's that there? Kyle, he's sending me a message there, mate. What do you got there? Is that the rankings? What do you got? Let's have a quick look. Oh, it's box live rankings. Okay. That was light heavy. All right. Okay, I'll have a quick look while we're going there, guys. So, okay. All right, we'll keep moving on there. So, Tim, okay. That's all the ratings there. I won't go over it now, but thanks for sending that through, Kyle. I'll have a little bit of a look later. Riddick Bowe, winning that WBC belt instead of fighting Lennox Lewis, has played his boxing career kind of like the great Duran with no mass in the rematch with Sugar Ray Leonard. I think, unlike Riddick Bowe, Andy, Duran got past the no mass fight because he had so many great wins after that fight and so many big fights. I think he gets a pass with that. I think everyone with the Duran factor knew that maybe Duran wasn't in shape. Remember, Sugar Ray Leonard wanted him in there as quick as possible because Duran blew out in between fights. Maybe he just wasn't physically, mentally prepared. I don't know. He was, of course, Mr. Macho was Duran, and maybe he didn't like what Leonard did. But I think, as I said, he redeemed himself. He had the wins over, who can forget the wins over Davey Moore and Iran Barkley after that fight. And, of course, he took Hagler 15 rounds. So, I mean, he had some great fights to Duran where Riddick Bowe, I agree, never really lived it down because there was absolutely no reason not to fight Lennox Lewis for the undisputed belts. So I know he tried to sort of frame it up that it was a WBC issue, but I think we all know he just didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis. Don't forget, they fought each other in the final of the 88 Olympics in Seoul, and Lennox Lewis stopped Riddick Bowe in that fight. So I don't know whether that had any lasting effects, but I think it was pretty obvious that Riddick Bowe did not want to fight Lewis. And I agree that it did sort of plague his legacy, I will say. I think he had some other big fights after that, but I think his legacy was severely tarnished because of it. But I don't think Duran, in the end, was tarnished at all by that Leonard rematch. The no mass I'm talking about. Kyle, haven't seen Blake Caparello, but he's now ranked in WBC, WBA at Cruiserweight. Yeah, well, he had a good win, didn't he, a month or two ago? So seems pretty serious about his career again. So let's hope he might be in the mix of something. Maybe we'll see him fight Joe Pataya at some stage. You never know. Tyson Fury talking about body shot stoppage of Dubois, tag Usyk on the belt and bring up Glowacki fight. Fury wins via body stoppage will be extremely unexpected for me, no doubt. Yep, I'm with you there, Andy. If you don't think that's going to happen, that's me as well. I don't think he stops Usyk with body shots. We'll get through a few comments there. What do we got? Casper, a Jugbar would be a big step up in competition for him, but he did look pretty average over the weekend. I'd still back him to beat Anderson from what I've seen. Yeah, well, as I said, Casper, we just haven't seen Anderson in that big type of fight where we can just see what he's got. And as I said before, like sometimes if you're fighting mediocre opposition, you look mediocre. Some fighters the opposite and just steamroll them. I've got a feeling that Anderson, I think, and Joseph Parker's probably not to this extent, probably been a little bit guilty of that in the past as well. Dropped a couple of fights, looked a bit disinterested sometimes, and then he goes in and beats Deontay Wilder and Zhang. So, I'm just going to withhold thoughts on Anderson at the moment, Casper, until he gets one of those big fights. Until he does, we just don't know. He's definitely got ability. It's just a matter of whether he's got it sort of in here to mix it with the big boys. Batman, what do you got there? Slightly edge Fury, but that Francis performance was terrible. But Fury being his highest career weight also was an indication he didn't take it seriously. I agree, Batman. I disregard a little bit the Ngannou fight. I know we all compare Joshua and Fury in their fights with Ngannou. I just think Fury turned up expecting just to waltz through 12 rounds and not really have to be switched on or fit or whatever, and almost paid the price. I mean, Ngannou, even in that fight, showed severe limitations, but Fury just wasn't in the shape to do anything about it. And Styles again. Fury was in the mindset of just boxing. Remember, he's not a big puncher, Fury. He was just in the mindset of boxing smart, giving the fans the money's worth and getting the win and getting an easy payday. Didn't encounter Francis Ngannou, who could actually fight a little bit. Joshua, on the other hand, was just in destruction mode and didn't want to wait around, didn't want to have any possible chance that Ngannou might land one or give him any problems at all, and just as I said, in destruction mode, and absolutely blew him apart in, what was it, 2 rounds or a round and a minute or whatever it was. So, but yeah, I just don't think he took the fight seriously, Batman. That's pretty obvious. All right, Kyle. If anybody ever says Sky has boring fights, they've obviously never seen a Jared Anderson fight. Absolutely terrible. It wasn't great, was it, Kyle? You're a bit of a Sky Nicholson fan, aren't you? I think she's a very, very good fighter, but I'm not quite sure Anderson's in the Sky League just yet, Carl, but we'll see. All right, DJ, who's everyone got, Haney or Ryan? I'm hoping Ryan gets some sense boxed into him or knock the brat out of him. I don't know which way to really go, DJ. I mean, I've seen a lot of the early social media stuff that Garcia did when when this fight was first signed. And I must admit, I thought, what the hell is wrong with this guy? But as it's gone on, and we're getting closer to the fight, I actually think he's just calmed down a bit. I know he's been still active on social media, but he's a little bit more measured in what he's doing now. I did see he's dating one of the Jenners as well. Good on you, Ryan. Good luck with that one there, buddy. Yeah, look, I think he's toned it down a bit. I have watched the specials on DAZN with the 24/7 type of show they've done. I think he looks a little bit more measured. I think you're going to see a lot better Ryan than maybe we might have thought. The problem is that Haney, we know he's going to be 100% focused. He's going to be 100% conditioned, mentally, physically, everything else. And I don't think he stops Ryan. I think he outclasses him and wins over 12 rounds. But I'm hoping Ryan comes to fight. He's exciting. Look, I don't think he's in that elite class of fighter, but he's entertaining. Everyone loves watching him. He's got a lot of social media followers. I will say, though, one thing about this fight in particular, especially watching the special on DAZN, or the 24/7 show they did, that both of the guys are so humble around the supporters, around the team, around everyone. You see Devin Haney going to people's homes to give out food to the needy. You got Ryan Garcia meeting with kids and all this sort of stuff. So polite, so humble, so respectful. And then as soon as you get them around each other, they act like absolute imbeciles. I just wish we could just see the Haney and Garcia, we see in those situations in the press conferences and weigh-ins and all that sort of stuff, because I just think they've both acted embarrassingly around each other. But as for the fight itself, DJ, I'm going to go for Haney in a unanimous decision, I think. I'm not quite sure he's got enough to get Ryan out of there. And I just don't think Ryan has got the skills to be able to go with Haney. So I think a 12-round decision. Yeah, good one here, Mutsy. Abdullah Mason was good again the other day. Can't wait to see him go up a level. I'm a big fan of him too, Mutsy. I think Mason is definitely one to watch. He's got all the tools, all the ability. I think, look out for some big fights for him down the track. I'm with you there. As next fight promoter, what is one thing you'd fix to make boxing around the world better? Geez, OJ, talk about putting me on the spot there, mate. One thing I'd fix to make boxing around the world better. Well, in an ideal world, of course, we would have a UFC format and structure where we have one belt, everyone in the organisation, everyone fighting each other to qualify to fight the champion. So we're always sort of one fight ahead. The champion wins and the fighters fight on one card to fight the champion on the next card. That's probably one thing, but that's never going to happen. I don't think. What would I do to make it better apart from that? I think we're semi on the right path, OJ, at the moment, because you're starting to see some really, really good fights happen. One thing, actually, I would like to see is that the Saudi Arabia thing has been great for boxing, but it's also hurt boxing to the extent where the money they're paying, it's very hard for the other promoters to then be able to match on their promotion. So it sort of set the bar unrealistically high. And I'm not sure how long Saudi Arabia will be part of the action. But anyway, it is what it is at the moment. But I would like to see the fighters more active. Would probably be one big thing. And maybe it's, I don't know whether it's incentives or I don't know how to fix it, OJ. But in an ideal world, I would have the elite fighters fighting more often. The best fighters in the world, probably apart from Canelo, maybe to some extent. Tim's obviously not in the pound for pound top 10 yet, but a lot of the pound for pound top 10 fight once a year. It's just not enough. So I'd love to be able to fix that, OJ. But overall, look, I think boxing, we're on the way back. The fact that we've got so many great fights this year, some big money at play. We've got promoters now starting to deal with each other. We've got Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn. We've got Eddie Hearn and Golden Boy. We've got Golden Boy and Top Rank and all these sorts of things sort of happening. I think we're on the right track. I'm just sort of thinking out loud as well, OJ, to fix it. I'd definitely ring HBO and Showtime, the CEOs, to get boxing back on the networks. That would be a big thing I would do. And I would have that pathway structure for the smaller shows gearing up to those big shows on the networks. But I would love to see HBO and Showtime back, mate. But anyway, wishful thinking. All right. Andy says, Dev likely boxes Ryan at a distance off the jab. Dev showed improved power at super lightweight, wobbling progress. Ryan has fast hands, but his setups to his trademark left hook appear predictable. We'll see. I think Haney will read Garcia like a book, Andy, and he'll read that left hook. And I just don't think Ryan will just have anything in the bag of tricks to even get near Haney. But I can't wait for the fight anyway, mate. No matter what I think the result's going to be, I just love the fact we've got superstars fighting other superstars. That's great. And even with Garcia, he mightn't be one of the absolute elite, but he's a superstar. And anything to get those types of guys in the ring with each other, I'll take any day of the week. Caspar, we've got the Matchroom Queensbury 5 versus 5 announcement tonight. Okay, I've been waiting for that. Looks like Zhang Wilder. Okay, Dubois, Hrgovic. Nick Ball versus Ray Ford, and Amo Williams versus Hamza Shiraz. Some elite fights. I like the Zhang Wilder fight, and I like Dubois Hrgovic. If I was going to pick that, I would think, geez, the Zhang Wilder fight's a really interesting one. I think if anyone's going to take Wilder's punches, it's Zhang. But Zhang, he just looks so uninspired in his last fight. Would he box him or try and punch with him? I don't know. Zhang only knows one way, and that's forward. Wilder looks absolutely shocking when he's on the back foot. But is he strong enough and big enough to take on Zhang in the middle of the ring? I don't know. That's a fascinating fight. Dubois and Hrgovic, I'm going to back Hrgovic in that one to stop Dubois, Caspar. Although Dubois did look good in his last fight. But either way, I'm with you there, mate. Really good fights on that card. And let's hope it's the start of some really good quality fights between those two organisations. Would love that fight. Hang on. But I think AJ will fight the winner of Dubois and Hrgovic for the IBF title if it becomes vacant. Yeah, could happen there, Caspar. Because you think that Usyk and Fury will fight a second time, wouldn't you, no matter what happens there. Andy says, Parker really been trying to bag that AJ rematch. I was hoping for it too. Maybe Dillian White rematch possible. We'll see. Well, Joseph Parker's been doing his best to get the attention of everyone, hasn't he, with his little musical numbers that he's been doing. The AJ and Parker make sense, Andy, as far as where they are at the moment. AJ is obviously third in line, well, first in line, I suppose. If you take Usyk and Fury who are fighting for all the marbles, you've got AJ as that number one challenger. You'd have Parker at number 2. So yeah, I don't think the Fury or Usyk will give up the belts straight away. So it's just an interest. I think, and I don't think AJ will probably want to go over old ground. He beat Parker quite convincingly, back in 2018. I don't know. I seem to be guessing a lot tonight, guys, but yeah, I'm not. I'm thinking AJ will just keep beating a couple of the fringe type of guys, just to keep active, and I think he'll wait for the Usyk Fury winner. Parker might just have to wait and hope that one of those belts become vacant, I think. So, which is a shame because he's earned a title shot, but he's going to have to stand behind a rematch between Usyk and Fury and then AJ after that. So, don't know. But again, like the 154-pound division, Andy, really, really good position or problem to have is to be in this position here where all these different guys that may fight each other. So, we'll see. There's the pound for pound king. How you going there, mate? Welcome to the show. What's next for Triple J? Who's that, Andy? Let me know. Triple J. Not quite sure who that is. I'm hearing Zoo versus Fundora did under 50,000 pay-per-view buys. Do you think Amazon is having second thoughts? Look, OJ, to be honest with you, I actually heard it might have been even a little bit less than that, but I don't know. Again, we're just guessing. They haven't released the official figures, remember? So I don't know. If it was even 50,000, what was it, $60? I think it was. Would have paid for the event. I'm not sure. Look, they'd be obviously disappointed in the numbers there, OJ, whether it be 50 or 40, 30, whatever the hell it might have been. But even if it was 50, they would be disappointed. But lots of different factors. I mean, I don't think they would have went out of the way to have Tim and Thurman as that main event that they started with. I just think it was a time of year. There was no one really available. Then, of course, the Fundora situation happened. It ended up being a blessing for Fundora and probably PBC to some extent as well. Not so great for Tim, of course. But, yeah, don't know. Or maybe if they did Zoo Fundora 2 later in the year, we might get some better views. But I think they'll just get the first one out the road, mate, and they'd be disappointed if that is the case. But I think they'll have some bigger shows lined up for this year, and if that is the case, then I suppose they'll judge it on those numbers and just put this one down as the first show, get that out the way, and move on. Oh, okay. We haven't really spoken about this one, Peter. How do you think Jason will go in Japan? Yeah, well, he's got a very, very tough opponent. He's only had 8 fights, but very, very big kickboxing background from what I hear. So I haven't seen a lot of him apart from a few highlights on YouTube, Peter. Look, it's going to be tough for Jason. Doesn't matter, who it is, to go over to Japan to beat a Japanese fighter in Japan. First of all, it's a credit to Jason for doing it. It's his 3rd or 4th fight on the road, and second as the champion. So you've got to give him credit. But look, end of the day, the fact of the matter is he's getting very, very well paid for the fight. And at this stage of his career, Peter, I think it's not so much about picking the exact right fights, it's picking the biggest money fights. He's already fought Inoue. Donaire looks like he's out of the picture now, and whether it could be not Tanaka, Nakatani or one of those guys, which will again be in Japan. I don't blame Jason for saying, you know what, it's a risky fight. It's going to be a hard fight. But if the money's there, then let's just do it. You're a long time retired, so now I think it's the time for Jason to cash in. And what will happen will happen. It's going to be a tough fight for him to win over there, Peter, but I've got more than enough faith in Jason that he'll get the job done, mate. If anyone can win in Japan against a Japanese fighter, it is Jason Maloney. Bare knuckle is hard to watch, just like that power slap thing, brutal. Well, that power slap thing should be banned, Mutsy. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. I'm a big fan of Dana White, but that is just ridiculous. I know people want to pay to see it. I just don't think it makes any sense to have someone just stand there and get slapped in the face by someone else. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, obviously people are paying to watch it. The broadcasters are paying to put it on their network. So whatever works for you. But I'll never watch it there much. I think it's ridiculous. And the bare knuckle, geez, they go for it, don't they? But I mean, let's face it. It's legalized street fighting. That's all it really is. Actually, that's probably a little bit what UFC is, to be honest. But bare knuckle, it just reminds me of just 2 people in the street just punching on without the ability to kick or knee or anything like that, or elbow. That's what it reminds me of, mate. I can't watch it. It's too bloody. I respect the hell out of the fighters, by the way. I respect them more than anything, but doesn't mean I have to watch it. Especially the girls. I mean, you see some of the, oh my God, the damage that gets done to the fighters. And you see a woman walk out the ring with her face just smashed to pieces. It's a hard watch. I will say I'm a fan of Beck. Was Beck Rawlings? What is it? Beck Rodriguez. I like her. She's got a bit of attitude about her. Comes to fight. I like watching her fight. But geez, the amount of damage they take. What's the one I saw? It was a video on YouTube or Instagram or something where some girl, she can barely talk. Her face is so bashed up. She's got big swollen cheeks and her eyes and missing teeth, and her tongue must be all cut up because you can barely understand a word she says. But yeah, no, not for me, mate. None of those. But again, full respect to the bare knuckle fighters, because I wouldn't do it. No way. Casper, I like Top Rank, but I feel lately they've struggled to build elite fighters into the superstars they should be. E.g. Crawford, Haney, Shakur, and even Teofimo isn't as big a star as they should be. Yeah, no, it's not a bad point, Casper. I'm probably more looking at not the absolute like top level pay-per-view aspect of it, but probably just building their fighters up. I've been to a lot of Top Rank shows over the last few years, and you just go, they're always really well run, really good fights. I just don't see the same with Golden Boy or Matchroom, or they're more focused on the superstars. I just think Top Rank focus more on those up-and-comers, and you're probably right there, mate. Maybe they need to do a little bit more with the Crawfords and Haneys and Shakurs and Teofimos, because they've lost most of those fighters, haven't they? So obviously those guys probably agree with what you're saying there. They're not getting out of it what they think. But I just think as far as being as an organisation, their template and structure is the best in the business. But I agree, maybe they've got to do a bit more at the top level to stop losing some of those fighters they've lost. Bill, hack again, another promotion. Running up north, apparently a good night. My opinion, more fights in Tas equals more opportunities for Tas fighters. But nobody does it better than Grant. And Grant is the pioneer of Tas boxing. Well, he is Tasmanian boxing, Bill. He's done so much for Tasmanian boxing down there. And I don't think he would have been overly impressed by someone else coming onto his turf, I wouldn't have thought. But you're right. The more shows, the better. More opportunities for Tasmanian fighters. And whether it's Tassie or whoever, then I suppose it's just good for Tasmania in general, isn't it? But I know Tassie, he would not have been impressed about that at all, I would have thought. All right, what do we got there? Beck Bully about to do some damage to that French guy's body. I'm not sure who that is there. Batman, let me know. Totally agree. We should appreciate a legend like Canelo before he's gone. He's already had 65 fights in this era. Unbelievable with the level of opposition and champions. He's beaten great fighters. He has, Batman. He cops a little bit of the Mayweather pushback, I suppose. As good as Floyd was, you can't sort of fight everybody. When you're only fighting once or twice a year, it's very hard to fight every single opponent when you should fight them. And no one else did it or does it. And I think Canelo, I know we've got to put the Benavides to the side with an asterisk beside it. But apart from that one, over the journey has fought every single fighter that he's supposed to fight. And fought regularly, which I respect more than anything as well. So I'm just a massive fan of Canelo. Even with the Benavides stuff aside, I'm just a massive fan of Canelo. And as I said earlier, mate, we're going to miss him when he's gone, just like Floyd. And I know Floyd had a lot of detractors out there, but geez, just seemed like boxing while he was at the top level. Him and, of course, Manny Pacquiao was around at exactly the same time. Just the buzz in boxing. It was always one or the other. It was Mayweather, Pacquiao. They fight twice a year. So 4 times a year. We just had these blockbusters in Vegas and the 24/7 episodes. And it was just a great time. And Canelo's the next one in that. And these days, I know we've got great fighters and still out there today, but it's not the fighters that's the issue for me. It's just the broadcasters and the networks and the promoters. Yeah, it's just not what it used to be, but hopefully, as I said earlier, the fights are getting better. We're getting superstars against superstars, which is great. And we iron out a few other things. Hopefully it'll be good times ahead. But, great fighter, Batman, is Canelo Alvarez. What's that? Dropping weight is always a risk. That's why I hated when Roy Jones at 34 years old went to 200 and back down to 175, especially at that age. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there, OJ. And even here, I'm assuming you're not Australian. Well, if you are, you'll know what I'm talking about. Even we had Anthony Mundine, and not, of course, the level of Roy Jones Jr., but won a WBA super middleweight world title, and I think it might have been an interim title as well in there as well. He started at super middleweight, actually fought Danny Green at, first of all, fought him at super middleweight, ended up at super welterweight. So he went from 168 and made his way down to 154. And then when he got to 154, he jumped back up to one. What did he fight Danny Green? The rematcher? Was it like 180 or whatever it might have been? And then come back again to fight Michael Zarafa at 160. So, and no coincidence that he got knocked out by Michael Zarafa in the first round. So, yeah, I'm with you though, mate. And this is the reason as well why Mayweather, Pacquiao, Cotto, and now Canelo, these type of fighters all fight at probably one division above where they probably could make, because at the age they get to and the wars they've been in, they just don't need the aggravation. They fight what's comfortable, a comfortable weight for them. And it just makes them have a little bit more longevity in their careers. No use sort of killing yourself when you're 34 years of age to make weight. And I'm with you there with Roy Jones. To go from 200 down to 175, and no coincidence again, he was beaten regularly after that. Was it after that I think Tarver was the one that knocked him out first, was it? I think from memory. But either way, he got knocked out a couple of times. And unfortunately, Roy Jones probably tarnished his legacy a lot at the end of his career. I think we've got to look back to when he was at his peak and probably in the top 10 fighters of all time when he was at his peak. What do we got there, Caspar? Crawford's manager was sitting with Eddie Hearn at the Richardson fight last weekend, and Eddie obviously promotes Madrimov. Not sure if there's much in it. Could be, Caspar. I wouldn't read too much into it, mate. I mean, it does happen. They sit with each other, and both stables or the manager and Eddie, of course, probably got multiple fighters they might be talking about fighting each other. So I wouldn't read too much into that. What do you got there, mate? The live rankings. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit hard just to go through them at the moment, Kyle, but I'll have a look later, mate. Thanks very much for that. Peter, maybe that garbage Victorian government can chip in for the Zoo versus Fundora fight at Marvel. Don't hold your breath, Peter. Don't get me started on this. You do this every week, Peter. We get onto the Victorian government. So we've got was it $600 million for the Commonwealth Games they cancelled, the $1 billion they threw away for a tunnel that was never built. Not to mention $15 million sponsorship to the netballers. Yeah, don't get me started, mate. They did get Cambosis Haney 1 to Melbourne. Oh, and the second one, I suppose. I got a feeling they didn't throw that much money at the second one though, from what I heard. But yeah, I think we'll just wait and see, Peter. I think they've got these agendas in Melbourne at the moment, rather than worrying about big events to bring people to the state. They're more worried about all the social justice issues at the moment, aren't they? So anyway, they've got a bit to contend with at the moment, Peter, haven't they? There seems to be a protest every day in Melbourne. They've almost got to book in the protest, it's almost going to be a street fight one day between two separate, or three even, protest mobs that are going to fight for the right to protest. There'll be protests about not being able to protest soon. That's what's going to happen. There's that many protests in Melbourne. It's ridiculous. I think it's the protest capital of Australia, to be honest. Every day there's a protest. So I think the Victorian government have got their hands full with that one at the moment, Peter. I'm going to move on before I jump on my soapbox. Well, Tim Tszyu want to sit out until November. The cut was bad, but I'm sure he'll be healed before Fundora in November. I wouldn't be surprised if he heals up before then, Batman. But I think if Fundora says I'm out till November no matter what, I think Tim will wait, because Tim's been very active over the last couple of years, and I don't think it's going to do him that much harm to sit out for, was it 7-8 months? Most fighters do that anyway. So I don't think, even though Tim would probably fight it for starters, I think that, I think if it was, and Glenn Jennings is the best at it, of course, and he respects Glenn so much. If Glenn and Igor and whoever else around him said, look, Tim, we understand you want to fight, mate, but in your best interest, just take a couple of months to chill, do what you're doing now, do your running and your boxing, your light stuff. But let's just keep an eye on the Fundora fight in November and do nothing to hinder that. That means everything in the sake of Tim's career. So I don't think it's probably the longest layoff that he's probably had in his career, Tim, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think once he's settled down, of course he's probably still geared up now and wants to get that Fundora rematch next week. But I think when he gets back to Australia and just lets the dust settle and has a good think about it, might just be a good thing just to take the rest of the year to get himself right. And you're right, the cut will heal up probably within 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think that'll be the problem. But I think, as I said, he's been very busy over the last couple of years. I don't think there'll be any issue with him waiting till November. Unless it was a fight maybe here in Australia against a lesser light just to bowl over. But there's always risks involved, always. Even if it was a journeyman who wants to bowl over, he could get cut again, he could break a hand, he could whatever. There's so many things that could happen. So I think he'll wait, mate, but we'll see. Casper, Box Live is definitely the best ranking site. Yeah, thanks for that. I'll have a bit of a look after this show. Did you end up watching the Herring Jackson England fight the other week? I did, Casper. I thought it was a close fight. Was Herring. I've seen Herring before, and he's a good fighter. Obviously, former world champion. I was surprised that they came to Australia for the England fight, so I don't think the payday would have been massive. I thought England probably just did enough, but it was a close fight, Casper. But credit to Jackson John England for getting the win. But yeah, I'm not sure whether Herring was the Herring that we've all been familiar with. Not to take anything away from Jackson, but yeah, I'm not sure whether Jackson would have beaten him 5 years ago. But anyway, yeah, no, good fight there, mate. DJ, Victorian government broke after cancelling Com Games. Yeah, we'll move on, or else I'll get back on my soapbox. Andy, any news from Tassie, Mike, or Pete? Not really, Andy. I still, especially Tassie, some phone calls, text messages, that sort of stuff. But everyone's just got so much going on these days, Andy. Pete's got he's managing some fighters, putting on some shows as well. Mike's managing a course, so all busy boys, mate. Peter, if you were running an Opataya card in Melbourne, do you think he could sell out a stadium? He's my favourite fighter. Unfortunately, no, Peter. He just wouldn't be able to sell out a stadium in Melbourne. Better off to keep him in Queensland if he's going to come back. Hopefully he stays in Saudi Arabia or England. That's where the money is. But I just don't think so, Peter. I think if it was in Queensland, yeah, he'd get a pretty good crowd. I know when he won the title, they had a good crowd there that night. I'm not quite sure how many tickets were comped or discounted or whatever it might have been, but there was a good crowd. But yeah, I think Jai, he's in that big league now, and unless he loses to Breeders, where he might have to come back, I think why come back to Australia when you could stay over there and earn some really good money and be in some really big fights. So unfortunately, Peter, morally he should be able to sell out a $40,000 stadium, but unfortunately he just wouldn't, mate. He's just not known down here at all. Melbourne has turned into a shithole. Yep, 100% agree there, Peter. The state has turned into a shithole, Peter. I'm not getting political, but that's what happened when you vote Labor. Anyway, I said it. You get what you vote for, Peter. That's all I'm saying, mate. That's all I'm going to say. You get what you vote for. And don't whinge now that the state's pretty much bankrupt. Well, you obviously live in Victoria as well. The fact that now on our land tax rates and everything else, or our invoices, the land tax is pretty much gone up by about 500 to 600%. So if you're paying about, I don't know, $500 for land tax, you're now paying about $3.5 to $4,000. Absolutely ridiculous. And openly on the invoice or statement, whatever it is a COVID recovery tax. If you're in a state, let us know whether you get that as well. Easy to spend someone else's money, Peter. Yeah, just there you go. Your money for everyone. It's not our money. There you go. We're not going to pay for it. Who cares? Aren't we just the greatest government giving out all this money and we're just looking after people? But then in, was it 3 or 4 years later, the people that didn't actually get any of the money are the ones paying for it, Peter. We're the ones funding the money they gave to people who don't pay 1 cent back. Anyway, I'm going to move on. I'm waiting for my wife, Tara, to say, just get on with it, Lyndon. Get on with it. Melbourne will protest about carry-on luggage. Well, I'll be there, DJ. I'll be gluing myself to the road for that one, mate. Don't get me started about carry-on luggage, DJ. It's a sore point. All right. What do we got, Casper? Herring posted on his Instagram yesterday he still hasn't received any money from Sam Labruna. Very interesting, Casper. Well, let's hope that is not the case going forward, that he gets his money. Not a good advertisement for Australian boxing, for other fighters coming if he hasn't got his money. Usually, I know, especially with American fighters, they sometimes get the money put in, they call it escrow. So before, or a certain percentage or whatever it might be. So the money has to be in an account that no one can actually access bar for the powers that be. So none of the parties involved can access it. And it's like a third party in charge of it. And then they dish out the money at the end of it. Let's hope that's not the case, Casper. Let's hope the money is on its way. It'd be interesting to see what he was guaranteed. So I would have thought he would have been, on some good coin, but I just don't think that event would have generated the amount of money that he would have been after. But obviously it did because he came here. But hopefully that gets sorted out. Kyle says more people know who Jai Pattaya is in the UK than Australia. Yeah, and it's a shame, Kyle. It's almost embarrassing, isn't it? But look, let's face it. I know we're all boxing fans and everything else, but boxing's not big in Australia. It's just not. The people that follow it are just as dedicated as those overseas, but it's just not a big sport in Australia. And you've got to remember, in Australia, well, I suppose it's the same all over the world. There's probably a dozen sports that are well in front of it as far as the attention that it gets in the media or on the TV or whatever it might be. It just doesn't get the attention, unfortunately. When you got Jai Pattaya, Jason Maloney, have received zero publicity here in Australia. It's ridiculous. It really is. Andy, Jai can sell out stadiums. Maybe throw some celebrity boxing in there. Well, that's the only way it'd happen, Andy. If they do what Sam Labruna did in Adelaide last week or the week before, whatever it was, and put on some footy fights. I hate to say it, but that's just the way it is in Australia. You've got to put these novelty fights on, or else people don't turn up. Unless it's a mega fight. I mean, we looked at Kambosos and Haney. Was there 42,000 for the first fight. Of course, Horn Pacquiao had 50. So, but yeah, it's a travesty here in Australia, Andy, that we can't get people to the fights, or a lot of them, unless there's celebrity boxers or football players, whatever it might be on the undercard. Cole says no, Jai would need Tim to sell out. Well, the one thing I will say is that Tim, let's just say he came to Melbourne, I think he could sell 50,000 tickets. If it was promoted by, and it would be, of course, No Limit in conjunction with this. Let's just say it was Tim Tszyu and Fundora. I think they'd get 50,000 to Marvel or wherever it might be here in Melbourne. I think they would do that. Melbourne. One thing I will say about not just Melbourne but Victorian sports fans, they love an event. They love an event. They might not front up the next time out, like we've had the Haney Kambosos 42,000 for the first one, and I think 8 or 9 for the second one. We had the State of Origin here. I remember going to the MCG and there was nearly 100,000 people there, and then the following year they had to have it at a smaller stadium because no one really went the second year. But if Tim Tszyu fought in Melbourne, yeah, I think I could safely say they would get at least 50,000. Andy says you're right. Sadly, Kyle, we need to popularise our champs more, for heaven's sake. The funny thing is, Andy, is back like 30 years ago when Jeff Fennick and Lester Ellis was around, they were absolute superstars. This is before the internet and everything else. It was just the newspaper or the nightly news. And Jeff Fennick would get 15 or sell out the Melbourne Park Stadium or Rod Laver or the Melbourne Park, whatever it was, the tennis stadium, 15,000 every single time. He got, what did he get, 38,000 or something to Princess Park to see the Zuma Nelson fight. Absolute superstar was Jeff Fennick. And Lester Ellis, again, was massive here in Melbourne as well at the time. It's amazing, isn't it, these days? We've got all the social media and the internet and everything else these days, and boxing's, it's just not what it used to be, unfortunately. Too many options, I suppose, these days. There's Jules. Evening all. Missed most of the nights out, but glad to jump on when Carry On gets brought up. Thanks, Jules. I'll repeat, guys. If it's got wheels, keep it off the freaking plane. All right? Check it. Check it in. All right, Caspar. Don't think Herring would have been on much. Went to that fight and stands were 80% empty. Is that right? It was disappointing for what was actually a good boxing card. Yeah, well, I didn't see all of it, Caspar. I saw a few of the footy fights and that as well, and some highlights. I didn't really watch those fights, but it didn't look too bad on TV. But that's a shame. It was 80% empty. Maybe that's why. Maybe Herring hasn't been paid. It wouldn't have been a cheap card to put on that arena. Look, I'm just sort of thinking out loud, or hypothesizing is the word if I can get it out. Look, that might have cost them 10 grand for the stadium. Might have cost 100 grand in purses. Those footy players wouldn't have been cheap either, by the way. The only reason they did it is because of the coin. So it could have even been more. All the expenses, that could have been a $200,000 event. So, and no money on Stan, although was it pay-per-view? Was it? The pay-per-views wouldn't have been high, you wouldn't have thought. So, yeah, it's not an easy game with promoting. I can take it from me, I can tell you. It's a very, very tough gig. Andy, do you think better marketing can boost boxing if done correctly? Andy, mate, all it would take is for the media to get behind it. And I'm not talking about some online articles that you can read. I'm talking about, back in the day, back page, front page sometimes, stories. That's what it takes. Unfortunately, the media decide whether a fighter or whoever is going to be publicised or not. And that's what I just remember back in the day. Even though like AFL here in Melbourne is the sports like a religion. Even when football was all over the papers, if Jeff Fennick fought in Melbourne or Lester Ellis fought in Melbourne, that was back page. And even, I'm not sure whether he's watching tonight, but even Ronnie Picken out there, my old mate, he tells me stories about back in the day with TV ringside at Festival Hall. No, I don't think it was even on advertised. Well, definitely wasn't no internet, of course, but it was just in the papers and it might be on the news. I'm not quite sure. It was obviously televised, but there was no marketing really whatsoever. But people just knew that Monday night or Friday night, whatever it was just fight night. Every week, whatever it was, they would have a full lineup of fights, and every week, if you ask him or talk to him about it, packed Festival Hall every single show. And that was when the stadiums actually managed the fights, not promoters. So the stadiums managed their own shows, and every week was packed out, and everyone just knew that was going to happen. And I'm sure they would have put posters up and around the stadium or whatever it might have been, but there was no internet, barely anything else going on, and it was packed every single week, 2,000 to 3,000 people every weekend. So it can be done, but that's when the newspapers got behind it, and not necessarily the TV got behind it. It was the newspapers. These days, if we had obviously the channels plus Herald Sun and all that here in Melbourne, I'm talking about Sydney Morning Herald in Sydney, whatever, that's what it would take. People will just read what they're given, Andy, and if it's not front and centre in front of them, they're not going to go out of their way to look for it. And that's probably why the YouTubers are so popular now, is because there's an audience on there and they're doing their own marketing and people are seeing it, and this is why they're so huge. Boxers could probably learn, and Ryan Garcia is a good example of that, by the way, if they could learn a couple of things by those social media guys, by having someone just in charge of social media to try and get, because that's what it's going to take. That's what it does take to get a following and get noticed. And the papers or the media will pick it up if the person out there, like they report on Jake Paul and all these guys, because they're the in people, and to be one of the in people, you have to market yourself, and I think more and more need to do it a little bit better. Got a few more comments, guys, and we'll call it a night. Interesting that Sergey Vorobev was on the card and seems to have been a big failure. I remember he was supposed to be the next big thing before he fought Ryan. Yeah, now he's on the card. He was on the card. I don't know there, Caspar, but yeah, that's an interesting one there. Peter, Zoo versus Fundora would easily sell out Marvel. Yes, agreed. Definitely needs to be marketed more. Andy, all the kids these days know every UFC fighter and Tim Tszyu. Well, Tim, that's the classic example of you get the media behind you and you become an absolute superstar. Tim Tszyu came from nowhere. I know he had the last name, but that's not the be-all and end-all these days. And he was on pay-per-view. The media picked him up, and away he went. Same as Danny Green, Anthony Mundine. Mundine had his own publicity because of the rugby league thing, but Danny Green, I think he should also thank Anthony Mundine that he was around at the same time they had that rivalry, because he just gave Danny Green a massive leg up, and Danny was very marketable as well. But both of those guys were household names. Peter, TV ringside was insane and boxing was massive. It was, mate. It was. I remember even back in the mid-'80s with Lester Ellis and Graham Brook and Barry Michael. I mean, just great times. And that's just Melbourne. I'm not looking all around Australia, but just boxing was just buzzing. What's that there? 30 more to 1,000 subs. Getting there, Andy. Once upon a time, it was just me here throwing you questions to keep you going. Yeah, appreciate it, Andy. We started off a very low base. You got to start somewhere, though. But I don't forget people like yourself, Andy. You've been there since day dot, mate. Let's try and get us to 1,000 subs. I used to actually have to come on here and have a whole list of things, topics to sort of go over to talk about for an hour and a half tops, I think it was. And here we are at 2 hours, and we could probably go for another hour. Mitch Robinson can fight, says Peter. I was actually quite impressed with him, Peter. Not so much with Nathan Brown or Kane Corns. Kane Pettifer, I think the one that Mitch Robinson beat, probably got a bit of a wake-up call. I think he'd had 3 pretty easy wins before that. The heavyweights, let's not talk about them. Was it Corey McKernan got knocked out by Anthony Rocker? And apparently Dane Swan goes all right too, Peter. Didn't see much of that one, but he beat Dale Thomas. So I think that would have been a bit of a scripted spar, to be honest. They were premiership teammates, so... all right, what's that there? Tasman can't keep regurgitating the same fights. Luckily, Jai wants to fight here for some reason. Well, Tasman, I don't think you'll see them doing a lot of shows anymore, Cole. I think they're more in the managing side of things. If they do shows here, it'll be in conjunction with Matchroom, who'll probably do a lot of the matchmaking and a lot of the groundwork, I would say. And Tasman will just put the fights on for them. So we'll see there, mate. Mutsy, show these same UFC kids who love UFC how much of a beast Jai is, and they watch every fight. Got to give the UFC credit, Mutsy. They do it better than anyone, mate. They've marketed it so well. They've almost marketed it like the WWE, but for real. That's the way I think they've marketed, and the kids and that are just so attracted to it. And we've got a long way to go in that area, Mutsy. We need, a little bit more. I mean, I love being a traditionalist. But in certain ways, we have to go away from the tradition of boxing and maybe take a leaf out of the UFC or even WWE's book, because they do it so well. Even the bare knuckle, and they do it really well as well. But I just think we can learn a little bit from those organisations, mate. What's become of Dempsey McKean? Don't know, mate. I did hear rumours he was on the comeback trail back in training, but hasn't fought since Hergovic. We'll keep going there. All right. What's that there? A couple more comments. Kaspar Jai definitely deserves the media to post him more, but part of it, I reckon, is because before the Breeders' fight, he was very inactive and had fought low-level competition, so wasn't really known. Yeah, well, good point there, Kaspar. Maybe if he does have a bit of a homecoming, maybe they might get behind him, but I don't know. They just seem to have the people like Tim Tszyu. The media are absolutely in love with Tim and Nikita, I suppose, now. And Nikita's he's probably a lot more better known than what Jai is, which is, we love Nikita, but at the end of the day, that's a travesty as well that he's more well known than Jai. But Tim, he's the poster boy of Oz boxing, and that's great. Sky Nicholson looks like she's going to get some attention from the media as well. But the fact that she's a female fighter might sort of balance it out with maybe not big crowds unless it's in Queensland. But as I said, Kaspar, I think we've got a lot to learn from the UFC and WWE, and it's almost like they need a marketing team these days to get behind them. And I know it all costs money, but the bigger guys need to do that, I think. You don't really need to do it over in the States or England, but here in Australia, where it's not a massive sport, I think this is what you got to do to get yourself known or noticed. All right, last comment here, guys. Shout out to Andy, day one. Really appreciate your persistence, Lynden. Thanks, mate. It's been a journey. You give us all a platform to come and talk boxing every week. No, I appreciate that, Jules. It's my pleasure. I like getting on here. Look, it was just a bit of an idea I had at the time. No one was doing it. I know there was a few footy channels that were doing it, and I just thought, well, this might be a good one to come on. And as the title says, just talking boxing, get on here. And the first few episodes were pretty hectic, weren't they, Andy and Jules and a few of the others that were here at the start. I think Carl, Big J were here pretty early as well, and I was just getting on here and trying to find something to talk about for an hour and a half, and now it's amazing that 2 hours goes through as quick as it does. But again, really appreciate everyone that comes on and has a chat, and I'm glad it gives you a bit of a platform to chat with other boxing fans, Jules, and get their views as well. That's it for tonight, guys. Really appreciate you tuning in again. And don't forget, Wednesday night will be the watch-along with the Ace Boxing show on 7 Plus. So if you've got nothing to do and you're watching the fights and want to talk with me and other boxing fans while you're watching it, feel free to jump on. And hopefully we'll see you then. The Friday we'll be back with the boxing roundup and back to sort of normal programming the week after with what do you call it? Content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All right, guys. Thanks again. Have a great week. Hope your footy team wins this week, unless you're playing Carlton, and we'll see you then.